Hello, this is Joseph Holbrook. We are now starting week 4 of our survey of Christianity, doing an introduction, and today we begin with the Middle Ages. So let's jump into our material. We're using Alistair McGrath's Christian History and Introduction. We're in chapter 2, pages 72 through 88. So we'll set the context. We're going to talk about in our outline, talk about the Western Christianity after the fall of Rome, the rise of Celtic Christianity, the 7th century, which includes Islam and Arab expansion, the age of Charlemagne, the rise of monasticism and schools, the Byzantine Christianity, that is Eastern Orthodoxy. We'll talk about monophysite. How do I pronounce that? Monophysitism or monophysitism, and also iconoclasm. The 9th century debates over the real presence and predestination, the Orthodox missions to Eastern Europe, the 10th century institutional decline, and then the Great Schism of 1054, and East versus West. So here's a picture of the Fourth Crusade. And these crusaders are in the boats. They're attacking Constantinople, their fellow brothers in Christ, and they take Constantinople at great cost of life and sack it for several days. Instead of attacking the Holy Land, they attack their cousins. That's in 1204, I believe. So, with the gradual disintegration of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, Europe changed. There was a patchwork of city-states which began to emerge. So there's more of a fragmented international scene. Instead of the Roman Empire, you have city-states. During this fragmentation, the Christian church gradually began to develop a temporal role at the heart of Western culture. The Christian clergy or hierarchy got sucked into the leadership vacuum. When stability emerged again around the year 1100, the church had already begun shaping the culture during this medieval period. We will explore some of the developments of the church in Western Europe through the Reformation. By the year 600, Christianity had developed itself in the Middle East, including the coastal regions of Western North Africa. To the north, Christianity had established its presence up the Danube and the Rhine. Christian expansion had also taken place to the east of the Roman Empire in Persia. Nestorianism had gained influence in Persia. Christianity was also established in India by the end of the 3rd century. I might want to point out that when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, this was somewhat disastrous for Christians living in Persia, because they were suspected of being fifth column or being sympathetic to Rome because of the political involvement of Christianity in the Roman Empire. So this shows some of the unintended consequences of Christendom. So how do we define the Middle Ages? When did the period begin and when did it end? In its broadest sense, the period can be said to have begun in 476 with the forced resignation of Emperor Romulus Augustus at the end of the Western Roman Empire. And you might say that the Middle Ages come to an end when Constantinople is conquered by the Turks in 1453. So that's only 20 years less than a thousand years, or a millennium. Another possible end date might be the invention of movable type by Johannes Gutenberg in the 1450s. The opening up of a great era of maritime exploration, especially Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas in 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And of course, that was, we're talking about the possible end dates of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern era. We're not making a judgment value on the conquest of indigenous peoples. That would come in another class. Pope Innocent I began to institute a centralization of religious authority in Rome. Pope Innocent I ruled from 402 through 417. Innocent wrote to the African bishops about religious controversies that had arisen in their region, and he insisted that nothing that has been determined, even in the most remote and distant provinces, should be taken as finally settled unless it has come to the notice of this see, that any correct pronouncement might be confirmed by all the authority of this see, that is the papacy, or the bishopric of Rome, and that the other churches might learn from this what they should teach. So in 417, Innocent was insisting on the priority of the Pope, the papal authority. Leo introduced the use of the term Pontifex Maximus to refer to the Pope. This had been the term the Romans used for the chief priest of the city in pagan times, and of course later on it came to apply to the emperor of the Roman Empire. He also framed some of the traditional arguments for papal claims to authority. Leo argued that Jesus of Nazareth had made Peter and his successors the rock on which his church would be built. Since the Bishop of Rome was the successor of Peter, who had been martyred in the city, it followed that the Pope was the ultimate foundation of the church. Gregory the Great ruled the papacy occupied the papacy, let us say, from 590 to 604. He was called the Great for reasons because he increased Christianity's reach and influence and added to the church as an agent of social cohesion. He instituted a lot of missionary activity. The church was the only international organization during this time period in Western Europe to have survived the collapse of the Roman Empire. The key word being international. Gregory the Great laid the foundations for establishing papal control of the church outside of Italy by sending a mission of Benedictine monks to convert the pagan Anglo-Saxons. And there is a picture of the Celtic cross, a personal favorite of mine. I once visited the tomb, or reportedly the tomb of St. Patrick in Dublin, Ireland, and kind of fell in love with the Celtic cross and its symbolism. So Celtic Christianity, that is the Christianity that was practiced among the Irish, the Welsh, the Scotch, this form of Christianity arose in Ireland, Scotland, Cornwall, Brittany, and Wales, following a different path than Roman Christianity. This form found itself in opposition to the more Romanized forms in England. The origins of Celtic Christianity was in Wales, although it was in Ireland which established itself as a major missionary center during the 5th and 6th centuries. There's a great book that I can highly recommend called The Celtic Way of Evangelism. A friend of mine is reading it now. I thought I would add a little levity to the course by adding this picture of St. Patrick. The legend is that St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. And here's a picture of him driving a car full of snakes. And they're saying, "Are we there yet? I have to go to the bathroom. How much further? I'm going to be sick." And it's St. Patrick looking very unhappy. driving the snakes out of Ireland. Haha. Whereas in Western Europe, monasticism tended to lie on the margins of the authority structures of the church, in Ireland it rapidly became the dominant form. The Irish church was monastic in its outlook, with the abbot rather than the bishop being seen as a figure of spiritual authority. The authority structures which emerged within Celtic Christianity differed significantly from the Roman British Church. The Irish monastic model came to be seen as a threat to the Roman model of the episcopate, in which the government of the church resided firmly in the hands of bishops. None of the abbots of Iona ever allowed bishops to formally ordain them, rejecting the need for any such official recognition. And this is a link to, on the right is a link to the full version of St. Patrick's breastplate. This is a prayer attributed to Celtic Christianity. It's not known if St. Patrick actually wrote it or if it was written by someone else. But I'll read the one on the left, which is a abbreviated version. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, and Christ on my left. Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise. Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, and Christ in every ear that hears me. St. Patrick's breastplate. It's very Trinitarian, by the way. That particular piece only reflected the second person of the Trinity, but if you read the whole thing, it gives reverence to the Father and the Spirit as well. In the northeastern town of Stanislac, later renamed Whitby, there had arisen to fame on account of the work of an Anglo-Saxon noblewoman, Hild, who lived from 614 to 680, who established an abbey and a convent there in 657. You see a traditional rendering of her on the right. On the left is a picture of the actress who plays the part in The Last Kingdom. So Hild, the noble woman who was also a nun, she also got a role in her own TV series recently. So she was a historical figure. And in the TV series, she's a fighting nun. She can handle a sword. Islam on the rise. In the year 600, Christianity had established itself throughout much of the region of what we now know as the Middle East, including North Africa. So, the situation changed significantly through the rise of Islam, the religious belief system based on the teachings of Muhammad, which provided a new religious identity for Arab people. So here's a picture of the Roman Empire and the areas that have been Christianized, which you see includes the Middle East, Asia Minor, North Africa, Egypt. All of these areas have been Christianized within the Roman Empire. And now here is a picture of the spread of Islam, which almost consumes the entire map for the Roman Empire at its peak in 117. If they had succeeded in taking the Frankish Gaul and and Italy and the areas in between, eventually of course the Turks did take Asia Minor. They would have basically taken the whole Roman Empire. So you can see how this affected historic Christianity, much of which was in Persia, India, Iraq, Iran, and the Middle East, modern-day Turkey. All of these areas have been Christian and now we're under the rule of Muslims. Charles Martel in the Battle of Tours A major period in the Islamic expansion took place under the Umayyad Caliphate from 661 to 750. Its capital was in Damascus. Islamic armies moved westward along the North African coasts, crossing the Straits of Gibraltar and establishing a presence in Spain, which was referred to in Arabic as Al-Andalus. This expansion into Europe was brought to an end by the defeat of the Arab army by the Franks in the Battle of Tours in 732, under the leadership of Charles Martel, which was basically meant Charles the Hammer. Just so happens that Charles the Hammer was also the grandfather of Charlemagne, Charles the Great. Eventually, the Umayyad Caliphate was ended by its defeat at the hand of the Abbasids, who relocated the center of the Caliphate from Damascus to Baghdad. However, the Abbasids were unable to overthrow the Umayyads in Spain, so Al-Andalus remained in the hands of the Umayyads. And here's a picture. I'm trying to remember. Oh, this is the battle in which, I believe it's the battle in which the Ottoman Turks defeated the the army of the Byzantine Empire of the Eastern Orthodox. I remember the name of that battle. It begins with an M, but I don't know that I can pronounce it. Islam and an intellectual stimulus. Islam also offered the intellectual stimulus to Christian theologians both in the East and the West. The rediscovery of Aristotle is widely regarded as resting on Arab scholarship. Islam also provided an intellectual motivation for Christian theologians to develop their ideas, especially concerning the nature of God. Medieval theology often engaged the issues raised by Islamic theologians of the period, particularly Al-Ghazali and Avicenna, whose Europeanized name was Avicenna was the Europeanized or Latinized name of Ibn Sina. And here is a picture of the coronation of Charlemagne by Pope Leo III. I believe this was on Christmas Day in Rome in the year 800, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been Christmas Eve. In the 6th century, the term Franks, which was in Latin was Franci, came to be used to refer to a group of Germanic tribes who established a stable and significant kingdom between the Rhine and Loire rivers. The increasing importance of the Franks in shaping of Christian Europe is best seen from the rise of Charlemagne and the establishment of what would come later as known as the Holy Roman Empire. The Emperor Charlemagne played a critically important role in shaping the cultural identity of Western Europe and establishing Christianity as the dominant religious faith in the region. The Charlemagne's reversal of the decentralization of power following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire led to the establishment of a new political entity, straddling the regions of Italy, France, and Germany, which became known as the Holy Roman Empire. The Council of Chalcedon and Monophysites. Although the Council of Chalcedon in 451 was intended to put an end to the divisive Christological debates going on in the Christian world, its formal definition of the identity of Jesus of Nazareth never achieved universal acceptance in the Eastern Empire. Chalcedon affirmed the two natures of Christ, in that he was declared to be truly human and truly divine. The Monophysites, who were especially influential in Egypt and Syria, insisted that Christ had to be understood to possess a single nature. Although this period provoked several attempts at theological diplomacy during the 6th century, aiming to minimize the divergence between the two parties. In the end, the divisions proved impossible to heal. It led to a schism between Orthodox Christian churches in Europe and a group of churches in Egypt, Ethiopia, Syria, and Armenia, now often known as Oriental Orthodox churches. So this is the first schism, taking place before the schism between Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. These divisions remain to this day. The Oriental Orthodox churches recognize the authority of only the first three ecumenical councils: the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Constantinople, and the Council of Ephesus, arguing that things went wrong at the Council of Chalcedon. Trivia note: Bob Marley, although dedicated to Rastafarianism for most of his life, accepted baptism in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church shortly before he died of cancer. Just thought you might want to know that. Yet the most divisive debate of this age concerned the place of icons in Christian worship and devotion. This comes from the Greek eikon, which means an image. One of the most characteristic features of Eastern Orthodoxy is its use of icons as windows of perception in public worship and personal devotion. Yet this practice came under intense criticism during the iconoclastic controversies of the 8th and 9th centuries. Although other issues were involved, one of the central questions was whether it was legitimate to create images of Christ for the purposes of devotion. This custom had long been in existence in the Eastern Church and was regarded as unproblematic by most Christians in that region. Yet in the early 8th century, this practice began to be questioned. The first iconoclastic controversy took place in 730, when the Emperor Leo ordered a removal of an image of Christ from the great palace of Constantinople. Two scholars found themselves at the center of a divisive debate over the nature of the real presence. Speaking of the real presence means we're talking about the Eucharist. So in the bread and the wine of the Eucharist, many refer to it as the real presence, meaning the real presence of Christ, physically or spiritually or symbolically, in the bread and the wine. Both of these scholars wrote works with the same title, Concerning the Body and Blood of Christ, although they had opposite arguments. Radabertus developed the idea that the bread and wine actually became the body and the blood. Ratramnus defended the view that they were merely symbols of Christ's body and blood, although Radbertus found it somewhat difficult to provide a convincing explanation. Another theological debate from this period of time is on the issue of predestination. The issue arose from what many regarded as an unresolved issue in the theology of grace developed by Augustine of Hippo during the Pelagian controversy. Did God actually predestine some people to damnation, or were they merely passed over in a sense that God failed to predestine them to salvation? Augustine tends, although he's not entirely consistent, to treat predestination as something which is active and positive, a deliberate decision to redeem on God's part. However, as his critics pointed out, this decision to redeem some was equally a decision not to redeem others. Thus, the question surfaced with new force during the great predestination controversy of the 9th century, which is too bad because they had other problems in the 9th century. A Benedictine monk, I don't know if I want to try to pronounce that. I'll just say he was known as Gottskalk, developed a doctrine of double predestination similar to that later to be associated with John Calvin and his followers. Pursuing with relentless logic the implications of his assertion that God had predestined some to eternal damnation. Godsalk pointed out that it was thus quite improper to speak of Christ dying for such individuals. So this is what he's saying here, is that Christ only died for the elect. He did not die for the damned, which is kind of I don't know. I don't really like the idea, but let's keep going. Charlemagne's vision of a new Frankish empire changed the face of Western Europe. Many saw Charlemagne as reestablishing the political and the cultural authority of the now vanished Roman Empire to bring new stability to the region. But what about Eastern Europe? The Eastern Roman Empire persisted long after the fragmentation of the Western Empire into territories and regional powers. It even reasserted its authority for a while over parts of Italy. By the 9th century, the peoples of southeastern Europe, such as the Bulgars and the Magyars, increasingly found themselves in a difficult political situation. To their west was the increasingly powerful Frankish Empire, with obvious territorial ambitions. To their east was the equally powerful Byzantine Empire. The political realities were obvious. Some kind of alliance would have to be established with one of these two power blocks at some point if they were to preserve their independence. Yet both of these imperial powers were Christian. Nevertheless, they were different kinds of Christianity. The Franks were Catholic, and Constantinople was Orthodox. So in 863, a chain of events began to move in place to bring about the gradual Christianization of the region. Ludwig the German, the grandson of the Emperor Charlemagne, entered into an alliance with the Bulgars. This sent Rastislav, the prince of the neighboring Slavic region of Great Moravia, running to the Eastern Empire. He sent ambassadors to Constantinople asking the Emperor Michael III to send missionaries to his nation. So the emperor dispatched Cyril and Methodius, two brothers who were familiar with Slavic dialects. They arrived in the capital of Moravia in 864 and began translating writings into Slavic. The Cyrillic alphabet, which takes its name from one of the brothers, of course, is still used in Russian, and it is also linked to this development, although it is now considered to have been developed by a disciple of Cyril rather than Cyril himself. Yet the politics of the region began to shift. The Bulgars, having initially decided to adopt Catholicism, now began to show a preference for Orthodoxy. The question which decided the issue was whether the Bulgarians would be allowed to have their own archbishop or would have an outsider imposed upon them by an imperial power. Basil I, emperor in Constantinople, found a formula that would satisfy both sides. He declared that any alliance with Constantinople would involve an autocephalous Bulgarian church, that means self-governing. This model would prove influential in spreading the ideas and practices of Byzantine Christianity in this region, especially in Russia. By adopting Orthodoxy, the Bulgars could retain their autonomy, having their own Orthodox bishops and archbishops. The 9th century is now regarded by most historians as a cultural and intellectual high point for Christianity in Western Europe. The Carolingian Renaissance saw the rebirth of interest in art, literature, and scholarship. The church played an important role in the Carolingian Renaissance, both as a patron of the arts and of scholarship, and as a stabilizing influence on the society as a whole. A high point of papal influence was reached during the reign of Nicholas I, Pope from 1858. But after Nicholas died, this led to a series of weak and corrupt popes, elected and controlled by prominent aristocratic families in Rome, who compromised the integrity of the Western Church. The requirement that the clergy should be celibate was widely flouted. This corrupt period in the history of the papacy was put to an end by the Emperor Otto I. Otto was alarmed at the incompetence of John XII, Pope from 955. There was also a movement for reform within the monastery of Cluny. Movements for reform sprang up within various sections of the church. Even in the papacy itself, from 1050 through 80, there were efforts at reform. Others outside the papacy were attempting to reform the church, recovering its spirituality and limiting its secular involvement. The most important of these movements was based at the Benedictine monastery of Cluny. This was founded in Burgundy in 909 by William, the Duke of Aquitaine. And here's a picture of the Abbey of Cluny, founded in 909. Then in 1054, we have the Great Schism. Cluny would be a self-governing community directly under the authority of the Pope. Its abbots would be elected by the monks themselves and would not be under any obligation to the nobility. The abbot of Cluny would retain authority over any daughter houses founded from Cluny. It's estimated by the end of the 12th century that more than 1,000 monasteries were linked to Cluny. And as I said, we have the Great Schism in 1054, but this didn't come unheralded. There was the Acacian Schism from 484 to 519, which was caused apparently by Pope Felix III's rejection of the Emperor Zeno's attempt to resolve the Monophysite controversy. The schism takes its name from Acacius, the Patriarch of Constantinople. Then we have the iconoclastic controversy of the 8th century. This misunderstanding was because of a translation difficulty between worship and veneration in Latin. And unfortunately, the Pope didn't understand the difference between worship and veneration and condemned, I believe it was the Pope, condemned the Council of Nicaea. Maybe it was the Eastern Orthodox bishops who condemned them. Then there was the Photian Schism, partly the result of the Western Church's introduction of the word Philoke in the Creed. And that Philoke means from the sun. So the Philoke basically changed the creed from the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, and the Philoke adds into that additional words, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, appearing to make the Holy Spirit subordinate to the Father and to the Son. Many scholars argue that the final breaking point was the intransigence of the two leading Christians of the 11th century, Pope Leo IX and Michael Michael Cerularius, the Patriarch of Constantinople. Reconciliation between the Eastern and Western churches now became nearly impossible. As a result, the Western Church developed more or less along independent lines during the Middle Ages without feeling any obligation to take Constantinople's views into an account. Leo's enforcement of Western norms in southern Italian churches, which up to then had generally followed Byzantine liturgical and devotional practices, was seen as tantamount to a claim of papal sovereignty over the entire church. So Cerularius seems to have come to the conclusion that the only way of safeguarding the identity of the Byzantine Church was to break away from any remaining relations with Rome and eliminate any papal influence in Constantinople. But this leads to the Fourth Crusade in 1202. Various attempts had been made during the Middle Ages for reconciliation, but none of them were successful. In part, this reflected the bitter aftermath of the Fourth Crusade. Although intended to neutralize Islamic military expansion, the Western armies ended up besieging and occupying Constantinople. Whether this was an intended goal of the Crusades remains disputed among historians. Whether accidental or deliberate, the Western sacking of Constantinople solidified the alienation between the East and the West. And here is a artist's rendering of fighting between crusaders and soldiers of the Byzantine Empire in 1202. And we end with the photo that we began. So, thank you for your kind time and attention. We'll be continuing on with part 2 for week 4 and discussing the dawn of the High Middle Ages. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions. Take care.